Hi guys, Craig here. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Tell Craig Your Story. And for those who are counting, this is lucky number 13, episode 13. Today we'll be speaking to Tony Fehr. Now, me and Tony met in Qingdao, China, and here we talk about his once-in-a-lifetime train trip from Beijing to Weifang and how it changed his life. And then he moved on, he moved back to Canada, where he started his own grooming company, Victorian Grooming. And he's also started his podcast, Footy and Toke, which he talks all things football. Alright, but before we go, please go to our website. We are on Spotify, we are on Apple's iTunes, we are on Google Podcast, and we're also on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, VK for our Russian listeners, WeChat for our Chinese listeners. Also, there is a link there, and it gives you all the availability of where Tell Craig Your Story podcast is available. Alright, here we go. Tony Fehr on Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Tony, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. I'm great, actually. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Long time. It's been a long time. It has. Recently, we've been talking a bit about our podcast and giving each other ideas. So I guess we should talk about, let's go way, way back to how we met. How did we meet?
The first time that I saw Craig, well, I think the first time we actually communicated was over WeChat. I'm pretty sure. Because I remember, no, I wasn't. There was no interview, man. Josh just said, hey, I know you're not working and you're just back fresh off the boat, back to China, fresh off the, you know what I mean? And he said, well, like, do you want to come on this teaching tour? And I was like, sure. And it was just to go, as you know, because you were one of the team leaders, right?
Yes.
And and that's when I first met you. I think was right off the train, when I got off the train from Beijing to where was that?
Weifang. Qingdao.
No, not,
Weifang.
But the train was the train went to Weifang. That's
right.
A long time ago, man. That's crazy. But yeah, so we met there. That's we got the band together. We took some pictures with some kites. I remember that. And then
yes.
And then it's like 2 weeks of teaching, just straight. Like, no, it wasn't even teaching, man. We just hung out basically for 2 weeks.
Pretty much. Spreading the word, pretty much, just going around. So let's talk about that whole experience. But because for you, I know personally that it was an amazing experience for all of us, really. But tell us about your experience doing that.
Oh yeah, it was it was like unlike anything I've ever done, ever. Like,
it was so spontaneous and random for you, especially.
Well, yeah, the timing of everything was, man, the whole year before that, the whole year and a half prior to that had been all spontaneity or spontaneity or whatever. Yeah. It really was, honestly. Like, it was a life-changing experience overall. I mean, learned a lot of lessons, met a lot of people, met a lot of good people, but it was like that experience for sure, going to those villages and teaching those, not like I say, not teaching, talking. We spoke English to these kids for 40 minutes or an hour sometimes, and just the look on their face of just everything that was happening was just so incredible to absorb. It was just an unreal feeling, because
we were genuine rock stars going to these. They'd rarely seen a
Alawai.
Yeah. So the whole wow factor for them
Woman
was...
Shalawai. Do you have a lot of Chinese listeners? Do you know
Yes.
if you? That's very cool, man. I love it. 你好，我的朋友中文. I remember a
Yeah.
little bit. I remember a little bit.
Yeah. So that whole experience was just for me was great as well. It was tough times. You know,
Yeah.
I got sick there at one stage, and I know that Yana got sick there at one stage. But you and Josh just seemed to sort of power on, like.
You know what, man? It was just because it was just that was at a time where, like I say, I went home. I came back to Canada for a month, but I had a return ticket back to China a month later. So I came visited for a month, and I brought a lot of my my sort of lifestyle from China back home. So like I was smoking a lot. I I was drinking a lot, and it was just weird because it was back home, but I was still in China. It was a fun month back home, and then I went back to China with absolutely zero reason really. But I wanted to go back. I didn't know why or what. And then this opportunity, like I said, Josh called me, and then it led to where I am now, really. That phone call, and holy cow, actually, Craig, this is a good story. I don't think I ever told you this. The day that I was meant to go on this train, I just about missed it.
Oh,
And
don't
here's
worry.
how
I know. I remember.
you, yeah, okay, because this was the highlight of the thing when we first met. I think this is where it came up because there was some sort of force with me that day because there was a opposite force though too because man, there was a huge, like, that was at a time in China when what was happening, there was a huge summit in Beijing and were closing
Yes.
roads down. Hey,
Yeah, I remember. I'm just
but who
agreeing with
was
you.
I no, sorry, I
Uh,
thought, I don't
it
remember
was
who it was.
the
Was it
wasn't
that
it?
huge summit like where all the, I don't know. It was a
I
good
think
time to leave Beijing, is what I
yeah.
remember, because I
Yeah,
don't
it
know.
was it was
It
like
was
so Obama came over and our
right.
president yeah,
That's
so it was the
that's when
top 20 leaders. Yeah.
a bunch of bars in Beijing were raided by
Yeah, right.
police actually during that time. So Patty's never got hit though, I don't think.
Well, the famous patties. Now tell
Oh
us
yeah.
about that. Just well, we're on the
I
subject.
I don't know if I should. No, I'm just kidding. It was just fun, man. It was an awesome Irish bar in Beijing. It was a lot of good memories there for sure. A lot of forgotten memories with a lot of good people. No, it was a lot of fun. I don't regret any of it. I don't talk to most of the people that I met there, but it was an awesome time while it was.
Yeah.
I talked to maybe one person from that time. You remember Dan?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Love Dan.
Yeah, he's good bloke. Very good bloke.
How you
Where is
doing,
he
Dan?
now?
If he's listening, man, that dude, he is a fucking nomad. I love it. I love the lifestyle. I love that because he did a big tour like from Korea all the way up. I think with his like girlfriend, his fiance, went all the way up through Russia, all
Yeah.
this like that Trans-Siberian
Siberian.
Express,
Yeah,
and
Trans-Siberian.
all the way through the stands, Kazakhstan, all that stuff through all the way to Europe and then eventually to England. Like that's a hell of a trip.
Well, he told me he was going to come to Australia, eventually move to Australia and do some work here, but that was 6 months ago, and he's still like, yeah, tracking through like Bali, and he's getting close.
Southeast
So
Asia. No, I
yeah,
don't think I don't know if he's going to Australia because the fires, man. Like I think
uh,
that was a thing, right? Like it was where he was going to go. I think in Australia was where the
the
majority,
fire
like the closest. What
places.
was the closest main city to
Oh,
the
it was south of Melbourne that they were getting hit the most, but it was a lot of Australia. To be honest, it wasn't just one particular area, a lot of the bush area. But since I've come back, the majority of the days have been raining, so the fires are all out, and some places are actually getting floods now. So
floods? Yeah, I heard that.
yeah,
Oh my God.
we can't win. But glad the fires are are out, and the places where they need water desperately, they've got some now, so it's good. So get back to your Beijing story.
When I got back to Beijing.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Which one? We started 3
the
stories,
train.
Craig. I don't know.
The train one.
Oh fuck, train. Oh my god. Okay, so the traffic was heavy. The first time I left, and I was in an Airbnb for a month, and so I was basically leaving there for 2 weeks, and I just like stored a bunch of shit there, and I was half packed and half unpacked, and it was crazy. Anyways, caught this DD or train or a cab to go to the train station. Got there, stood in line, saw somebody holding their passport, and just about shit my pants because I didn't have my passport. I forgot my passport in the apartment. I was like, well, that's that. Cool. I guess I'm just stuck in China. And I ended up going back to the apartment. I was like, nah, I can do this. I went back to the apartment, hustled up the apartment, got my passport, got a train back, got stuck in traffic on the way there, on the way back, on the way there. And then, long story short, I ended up making that train. Like, I swear to God.
You got
by
there.
like 2 seconds flat. They were like last calling kind of thing, and I made that train. And making that train, man, changed my life. Yes. I actually, you know what? I love that story because that train actually changed the course of my entire life.
Yeah, because then
every moment is a different course of action, but that train in particular, to catch that train at that exact time, right before, like, man, I was meant to be on that train.
Yeah, and just what if you'd missed that train, we probably
Here's the alternative. You'll never know the alternative.
The
alternative course of action.
That's right. And then that persuaded you to move to Qingdao.
I only know one thing. If I miss that train, the only thing I know is that I'd have been pissed off that I missed that train, and that's the last thing that I would know from that alternate.
That's it. Yeah.
Fuck. Missed the train. And then that's it.
Oh, well, I'll go back to Paddy's.
Go to Paddy's and then reorganize. Who knows what would have happened? Anyways, doesn't matter. Then I moved to Qingdao because we went to visit on one of the weekends. We had finally like a weekend or so to ourselves.
And I just remember like that when we went to the wharf, the ferry, and I always have that picture in my mind of you and Josh on that sort of car thing,
that thing with 2 wheels, like it was like a gyro,
the two
driving, like with the hat, it was weird.
That was the weirdest thing that I've ever seen, but it made me laugh so much, and just seeing you two guys, like probably you and Josh, big guys, and for you to be swaying in that car, it was like, oh my god. And then there was like a little step there, and you missed that by half a foot, and I was like, oh no, don't worry about it, it's cool. But man, I haven't laughed so hard, in a long time. It was real funny. So tell us more about Qingdao. It's a beautiful city.
So many memories are just flooding through my mind from that whole trip, man. What an awesome time. Like, I know some of us got sick, and there was a lot of like stuff, and there was a lot of bullshit with just the company in general, and but it was such a good trip, man. Sorry, just reminiscing now. Nostalgic.
I was talking about this the other day, just realizing how much sort of confidence to be able to do what I do now. It was because of China and doing that trip, and having the courage and just wanting to get out there and do it. I just I look back on those times, and I really sort of appreciate all those good times and what it's going to do for me now in the future as well. So
absolutely,
very, 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 very good times. And I remember coming to see you. You actually lived there for, was it a couple of years?
What, China in general?
No, in Qingdao. How long did you live in Qingdao?
Years.
A couple of years? Yeah.
2 years, about.
And
China for about 3, I was in Beijing for a year, and then, Qingdao for 2 years.
Yeah, right. And so what sort of made you decide to go back home?
Well, there was a few things. I ended up actually when I was in Qingdao, actually a week after getting to Qingdao, I met a girl in there who was from basically the same city I was from in Canada, which is ridiculous. It's two different cities,
Yeah.
but they're literally like you could get from one to the other, like the south side of one to the north side of the other in about 5 minutes. So like
Bloody
it's
hell.
essentially the same city. So like she's like, oh, you probably don't know where it is. It's this small city in Canada. I'm like, try me. She's like, oh, it's near this big city, Edmonton. And I'm like, well, I'm from Edmonton. And then yeah, it was
Wow.
just crazy. So super cool. And like we're still together today. It's cool.
Come on.
Very cool,
Lovely
yeah, man.
Lauren. Come on.
How crazy? Sorry, she's sleeping right now, so she's
Oh, she's sleeping. Oh, okay.
she's got to work in the morning, yeah.
Oh. And she's doing
Um,
like, because she was doing English teaching there as well. Now she's sort of going off to do something more like a hobby sort of career path, right?
um, no, I don't know what hobby you're thinking of or who you're thinking of.
Oh, like her passion is like pets and like
Oh, yeah.
animals.
Oh, sorry, passion based. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I thought you said hobby. Sorry,
We
because
can edit
like
that. No worries.
no, don't edit it. It's okay. You gotta have it's all communication. So if there's a miscommunication, it's just part of the process of communicating.
Yeah.
So lived in Qingdao, met this awesome girl from basically the same city, still with her.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Her birthday's actually this week, so that's
Oh,
pretty fun.
happy birthday.
Yeah.
So we get back even before that. Like, tell me the like sort of the reason to actually come to China in the first place. I mean, that's always an interesting question. And
It is, and it's for me. It was it seems so simple, but there was a lot of I don't know, like I was down. What I wanted to do was first I took a TEFL course where you can teach English as a foreign language, as kind of like a foot into getting something, right? So my whole thing was to live abroad somewhere, and through my research with what education or lack of education I had in regards to different jobs you can get across the world, teaching English as a foreign language was a plausible option. I wanted to go to Italy because obviously, like, have the Italian blood, and it means a lot for me to go back there. I was not no born there or anything, but I visited once, and it was a high school trip, so I didn't really get the full, sort of
experience.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very controlled, guided tour, anyways. But I was in an alumni group for this TEFL course, and I started speaking with this one guy. I was like, hey, like how's the course? Like what are you up to now? He said, I'm in China. And I'm like, oh, crazy. Like China never even crossed my mind, man. Like
Yeah.
China was like all my 90% of the shit I have is made there, but that's about it. Like I never really, maybe only because of like football, like because of soccer, football, footy. But because of that, like I knew about the, Chinese national team and the Chinese league and all that. But other than that, I didn't know much about the country. And I started talking to this guy about China. He's like, man, go to China. The wages are like much higher for what you actually have to pay to live and blah, 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 blah. Basically sold me on China. And and this guy was like married to a Chinese lady, and like he lived in this small city in Inner Mongolia, but he lived in Beijing, but he hated the big crowds. And anyways, and he's like, come to China basically. And I started talking to him. He gave me a bunch of tips. Like this guy like filled me with knowledge to the brim of like what to expect, what to watch out for. So I felt like I had a bit of a leg up in some regards, because like one example is so many people that I met early on getting to China for the first time got ripped off by taxi drivers, like
Yeah.
all that kind of shit, which is one of the biggest scams to look out for, really. You
Yeah.
know, did
Definitely.
that ever happen to you? Any
At the
scam, any
start,
Chinese trickery? Did any of that happen to you?
definitely at the
Yeah.
start. going from the Shanghai airport from Sydney, and then going to Suzhou. So when I got to Shanghai, just to go to the city and stay overnight, and I just got a taxi, and I think it cost me about 250 RMB to get from the airport to the city, and I was like about 40, $45 Australian. And I was like, that's a little expensive, but I've seen worse. And it's like, yep, there you go. And then I got to meet all my people that I work with, and it's like, oh, how much did it cost you? And it's like, oh, about 225, 240. What? That's crazy, man. You shouldn't have paid. You should have paid like about 100 RMB. Don't pay any more than 100 RMB. They're ripping you off. They just see that you've come off the boat, or as you say it.
Sorry, yeah, no, you know what I meant though.
So anytime that I got over 100 yuan now in a taxi, or a DD as they call it over there, I'm a bit of a hard ass and was like, what's going on? I translated in Chinese that you're taking me the wrong way.
Man, and they have, and I've been in scary situations, man, in DDs and taxis and stuff. One guy was like falling asleep. Actually, it happened to Lauren. She was in a DD on the way to work, and he like fell asleep and like went into like the other lane or whatever, and like he swerved and shit, and then woke up, and like she called me like freaking out. I was like, holy cow, like they work like literally like 24/7. I think some of those drivers, like they work till something happens, like an accident, or like they must. Like that's crazy. It happens. I've seen it happen so much. It's scary, man.
Well, I guess they wouldn't get much money working as a DD driver in China. Like a percentage.
I can't imagine so. Yeah. I would have no idea though.
That's crazy.
But anyway, maybe that's why they're like Lawai, I'm gonna do them for a couple extra 100 kwai, because I remember that a lot of those like scams that happened. The first one that happened to us was I was with Josh, and we did Forbidden City there in Beijing, and then we went up. There's like a sort of a mountain you can kind of climb up, like on the other side of it. So we went up there, and then there's like a nice lookout, and then we talked to this nice Chinese man with very good English, and we're chatting away like, where are you guys from, and this and that, and it's like, oh, what Chinese do you know? And like we're like, yeah, we just got here, and this and that, like so open and honest and just trusting foreigners. Anyways, we walked down a bit. Eventually he's like, yeah, I got a buddy that owns this tea house down the way here. You want to come over and try some tea? And like, I swear, like, I don't know if I was just super psyched about just the whole thing, like being there, or like, hey, this guy's nice, like, but yeah, it's a tea house scam. Anytime anyone invites you to a tea house, they're going to give you some tea, maybe some beer, because foreigners like beers. They're gonna charge you for this beer, and your bill is gonna be outrageous. I don't even remember how much it was, but when we left, we're like, yo, we just got fucking rigged. Like, no, we knew right away, man. Like, oh, because there's nothing you can do, man. Like, they'll come after you. It's scary.
Well, I'll tell you, when I went to the Great Wall of China, and for the first time, again, it was just like eyes wide open, and just jumped on the first tour that I found. And then all of a sudden, like you said, we stopped off at a tea place. We tried all these teas. Then we went to a foot massage. Then we went to an Indian place where they do tuxedos and suits. And it's like we got up at 6 a.m. to do the tour, and then by the time we did all these sort of stop-ins, and it was like 9, 10 at night. So yes, just be careful with what tour you're going to do in China, because but yeah, also there was one taxi there. I don't know where it was. I don't know if it was in Qingdao or Juchong. But they had like a button on when we got in it just said foreign, and he pressed that button, and it just went skyrocketing. And like we'd already paid like on the meter, it already said 50 yuan before we got around the corner, and it's like, no, let's get out. Lucky I was with a group of friends, so we were just jumped out of the taxi and then just walked back the other way because he couldn't do a U-turn.
Yeah.
So he's bipping his horn, he's screaming, and it's like, no way. So
wow, a button that said foreigner.
Yes.
Or foreign.
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
And we just got around the corner. I swear it was less than like 100 meters, and
50 kwai.
50 kwai already. Yep. And normally in those village areas, they start off about 6 or 7 yuan. In Shanghai, it's a little higher, maybe 14 or 15. Yeah.
Shit.
So
15.
There you go, 50. So, yep.
Wow. Must have been Suzhou. They're trying to really bump up.
Might have been Suzhou. I'm not 100% sure, but it was, yes. There was a few
crazy, man.
Just before then, but
it's insane.
Yeah, so you did this writing contest as well. I remember you did. Did you do this contest when you were in Canada? You did a writing contest and you talked about your experience with going to Juchong and your experience in China. How did you go there? I never got to ask you that question.
Quickly to touch on that little that entry, that article. It was just like, it was a kind of a thing that the TEFL Academy that I did my course through kind of had like a little contest where you could win some or whatever, like a traveling thing. But yeah, so I submitted that. It was very cool. Jucheng was an incredible experience to put in that article, I think, as well, because it was just like I said before, it was just such an incredible, life-changing experience. The whole China trip was, because before China, I was working in the car industry for a while. Nothing like sales for a bit, but like odd jobs here and there, but nothing really fulfilling. You know what I mean? Like nothing, no, really, like nothing really rewarding. It was just the same kind of shit, and I didn't really care for the industry at all, actually. And so finally, just towards the end, like I said, I took this TEFL course and ended up talking to this guy about China, and then I looked into that, and he hooked me up with a company that he worked for in China, and it kind of just started like that. I had my interview like with them, like my Skype interview, and I think, what did I do? Like heads, shoulders, knees, and toes, or something like that. I was like, so yeah, it was so funny, man. It was funny, like. The whole like dancing white monkey thing, it sounds really bad. Like it sounds like funny, like fun, like haha, but it's just a clown. Like you're really just a clown for these kids sometimes.
Yeah.
And it is good. Like some of the actual educating was really cool. Like that grade 3 class like that I had in Qingdao was cool.
Yes.
That was, they were like, it was awesome teaching them science and stuff, and like it was just, yeah, it was really awesome. Cool, great experience overall, man. So
would you ever go back there?
Nah.
No.
No. Some experiences are meant to have been experienced,
Right.
Not re-experience. I don't know. I mean, maybe for a visit, but
yes,
just to kind of see.
So now you're happily back at home. How close are you to your family? Have you gone back to your city, or?
Yeah. Actually, that's where we are living now. We're in like just like the city that Lauren was from. It's called St. Albert. It's just like right close to there. So her family is here. So we first came here, but my family's all in Edmonton, and we're actually moving there soon. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah, but like I say, it's literally like it's right there. You know what I mean? It's like from here it takes about like 10-15 minutes, and you're right in the middle of the city. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
So I see all these pictures, like I went onto your Facebook page and just sort of reminiscing, and I saw all these pictures without a beard.
Oh yeah, it's weird, eh?
So when I first met you, I think you had the beard.
I
Did you
did.
have the beard?
I did. I think, when did that start now? Like 3.5 years. So
So,
had to have been 4 years? No. It had to have been midway through
well, I
Beijing.
think you sort
The
of had
first year.
like a goatee thing happening or
No,
something
I
like that.
never
Huh? No, you
never
had
had
the full.
a always had a full beard, but I think it was just probably just the scruff coming in. It was early days where
Because
I
we
kept it
had
quite
because we
primitive.
had that issue with another teacher, and that was partly the reason why he didn't. That's why you got the start to go to Qingdao and Juchong, was because he had a beard. He refused to shave his beard for this. The Chinese people have this sort of cliche of the white person, freshly clean, shaved, and the short haircut, and
Yeah, but there's a difference between having a beard and having a groomed beard.
that's right. Yeah, that's
That's
true.
what my whole business is about.
So yes, and that's what I'm getting to. I'm slowly building to it. So let's talk
Sorry,
about this.
it is unscripted, this whole thing.
It
So
is
we
unscripted.
haven't talked about where we're going with it yet.
That's right. So I wanted to ask you about Victoria Grooming. Tell us
Yes.
about this. I think this is great.
So this Victorian Grooming Company sort of conceptual, not sort of, it did conceptualize in China. Um, I it's funny actually. I was just thinking about this before we started recording, about how in like 2 years before I started like working on Victorian grooming, I did do some research into sort of the basically the business, like creating beard grooming products. And
Right.
that this was 2 years prior. This was in Beijing, but it never really um, I never really went anywhere that I stopped. It just stopped. I guess I was busy in Beijing. Like I said, it was a kind of a party year anyways, so I needed to get that out of the way first. But then, yeah, no, I think it was a holiday time, so it was like 2 months off, and it was just like this paid time to just off in the winter. It was awesome, and so I took this time to kind of start the research, start the formulating to see, because there was no beard products in China,
Mm.
and initially, like, it started out just what can I find product wise, like what oils can I use that are good for my particular skin and beard and everything.
Yes.
And after a lot of formulating and figuring out, I finally came down with a blend. And then as things progressed, I realized, I was like, I think there could be more to this. I enjoy the formulating and the creating part of it, but I also really enjoy the aspect of creating something of that someone else finds value in,
Yes.
and them finding value in it and then buying it, like making and selling my own products.
So how,
So
how did it go with the like obviously like the cliched Chinese man is not real renowned for growing like these huge bushy beards. So was it popular with the Chinese people, or are you more sort of
uh,
focusing on the
it
on the foreign hairy man?
nothing was ever released like in China, like this, like this was all the background stuff. Like, I had access to, like, I could source these oils for testing and formulating and stuff, but nothing was ever, I never sold anything there, right? Because it was all just the early stages. I needed to do all of my background search, before I
Right.
could put it in the front. So that was part of the reason for coming back home, was to actually give this an opportunity to really start. And just the timing of everything worked out. We, like, Laura and I both agreed it was time to come back home and to kind of get things going here. It was an excellent adventure. Like I say, it was a life changing experience for me. getting on that train, man. That's
That's
it's that's crazy to think, how things could have been so different otherwise.
that Beijing to Weifang, hey?
Beijing to Weifang.
Do you still have the ticket? Just quietly.
Oh, probably.
So,
Maybe. I
so
don't know. I
how long
kept
did it
a little.
take you?
I did keep a book of those tickets because we did a lot of train traveling in that gig too. So it was kind of neat. It was a way of documenting, you know, and I documented some of it, but
So how long did it take you to get the business up and going, and then tell us about how it's going now and where you where people can get all your products?
well, yeah. The So it was about December of not last year, but 2018 that this sort of started. It was It was on a trip actually to Busan to go visit Dan because he was
Oh,
living there at
nice.
the time. Yeah, we went to visit for the weekend, and I just was doing a bunch of research, like on the plane and the airport and stuff. Like that's when it kind of started, and then like I said, I had that time off, and I really took advantage of it. I was literally up like from like 6 a.m. to like 2 a.m. Like, it was crazy. Like I was just so just into it. Like it was amazing. It was incredible. It was like I felt like I found this sort of like passion that I never, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to
Yes.
describe, but it's real. You know it when you feel it, like it's just interesting. So I really ran with it because man, I had so many different thoughts, in my mind. Like there's always, well, not there was never really pressure for me to go to like a post secondary, like to go for
Mm.
for any sort of thing like that. And I mean, I don't know. I know a lot of like companies out there maybe judge on that, and it's like, super important for people to have the degree. And I'm not against schooling or anything like that, but it was just, I don't know. It's just I found this passion, and I went and did the research, myself, and
Mm.
like just I don't know. It was interesting. Like it was just learning through doing, and it was something that I actually wanted to do and actually really cared about. So it made it very easy. It made it very easy.
And now that the product is up and running, are you just sort of concentrating on people in Canada, or is it sort of like a worldwide thing?
Oh, well, I mean, it's just so okay. So from that timeline, like I say, December 2018 was definitely when it sort of started conceptualizing, and then by the time, because we got back to Canada about April the following year, and that whole time had been like grindstone, like work basically to get it ready for coming home. So when I came back to Edmonton, I hit the ground running,
Yeah, right.
and it it took a couple of months to get all the logistics sorted out. But then I was at a market June 1st, starting to peddle my wares, as it were.
Yeah, right. Do you think that because you were telling me earlier that you were looking at also going to university as well? If you were going to follow that path, was that something like the grooming business? Was that so? Were you going to go into like a business degree or?
Man, I had no idea. I didn't know what I wanted to do. To be honest, like I don't know. I I almost was considering getting into education
Right.
because I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the the sharing of knowledge, and like seeing it absorbed and seeing it's just interesting, just the process of it. It's like, and as much as I am about like not going to post secondary, for example, like but being on the teacher side is very interesting to see education. Like but I think it has to be something that you really want to learn. That's why I think when things started with Victorian grooming, I went into it like 100%. You know what I mean? Because it was something that I was genuinely interested in educating myself about. Which is a lot of the things that I've done since then have been me just with a desire to learn that's specific thing, and then like you just Google it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like just I don't know, like obviously there's specialty skills. Like if you're good at something, then focus on that, and that's what I tried to do. I had like as far as the creativity and from a brand standpoint, it was important for me to provide value. It's something that's very important to me through and it's through my product, that's helped me, and now I want to help other people with the same situation. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
and
that's good.
it's awesome because it's something that I actually enjoy doing. Like I love creating these products and talking about them and being at the market. And now, like I said, June 1st of 2019 was my first market, so my 1 year of markets is coming up, which is exciting.
But Tony, but I feel that you're the type of guy that you need to be in like your own business or something like that. You're a very good communicator. So I just feel this is your sort of calling, having your own business and be able to talking to people about the product and sort of selling it. I just think, in my opinion, that's what you're doing is great. Sorry.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. And the other thing that I can remember is I'm not sure the time period. I think it was during this time, but on Instagram, you were putting these sort of like motivation. You're like putting these videos of motivating people. So tell us, is that something that you want to do in the future, or is it just a hobby, or just?
Oh, I don't know. I was in a good place, man. I was in a
Yeah.
really good place, and I was executing on what I wanted to do. It
Yes.
was just that was the time in China when I was really doubling down on my shit and doing
Mm.
stuff. Feeling as though what I was doing was what I was supposed to be doing. At least in that frame of like future. Like long-term goals,
Yeah.
right? Not like right now, like day-to-day micro things, but like on the big picture. It is something that was important to me to, I don't know what it is that, like, there's so many parts of it that I just love, like being like essentially the entrepreneurship sort of way of being with running a business and like
Yes.
having created it, and it's just very exciting. It's like, but I love what you're doing with this podcast, and to speak on a podcast. Sorry, that works two ways. To talk about a podcast it's very interesting because you gave me a bit of inspiration as well. Well, primary inspiration to start the
Mm.
Footy and Toke Show. Because when I saw that you started a podcast, I told Lauren, I'm like, yo, Craig started a podcast.
Mm.
That's so cool. So we started listening to it, and it was
Yeah.
good, man. It was awesome. I was super psyched for you. I was excited because I've always been, like you say, a communicator, right?
Yes.
I like people. I like talking to people, and a podcast was always something that interested me. So this is cool. I love being on your show. Absolutely. And we're buds. It's been a while, like life takes you different ways, and
It has.
and
Yeah.
it's cool that it's brought us back, in this way. Like, it's super exciting. Love to
Definitely.
have you on the Footy and Toke. I don't know if you toke much, but
Well, maybe not the toke side of it, but I definitely,
if you come to Canada, then you can.
yeah, definitely. I've got to get over there and see you guys. I will get over there. I don't
I'd
know
love
where,
to come
but
to Australia, man.
yeah, you can come to Australia, definitely. But yeah, just talking about those motivational things.
Right.
I just thought.
Sorry, I detoured.
Sorry,
So
no.
said
That's okay. I
talker.
just thought they were great. Like, I don't know what other responses you were getting, but just all out of the blue, all of a sudden, I just seen you doing this, and I just thought it was great that you were doing this, very motivational and doing that. And you were saying that, I gave you a bit of inspiration to do the podcast as well. I remember us sending numerous messages to each other, just talking. You were telling me get out of China. telling me to start a band, get into the music, record music and get this podcast going. Do it, what do you got to lose? You
I
did.
remember that chat.
Yeah, you gave me some inspiration. I thought I joined a band in Shanghai. What was it, about April or May last year? Best thing that I've done. And then
That's awesome.
this whole podcast thing, it took months it was the same, I guess, with your grooming company, to just do the research on, and then we started talking. That brought us back again, about talking about different microphones and, how do you do this with the podcast? How do you do that with the podcast? What do you use? What am I using, So it was a good sort of back and forth. And we're still doing that now. So, that's great that I can sort of bounce ideas off another podcaster.
Absolutely,
so,
man.
Talking about that, you've recently started your own, a Footy and Toke podcast. Tell us a little bit about this.
The Footy and Toke Show. So the Footy and Toke Show is myself and my co-host and friend Augie. He's another local entrepreneur, business owner, and we both really love football and like soccer, obviously, depending on where your fans are or your audience is, and or the footy. Because in Australia, the footy's what? Aussie rules football?
The most predominant. AFL. The thing is, we have AFL, rugby union, and rugby league. So depending on where you live is what sort of sport rugby you follow. Then you have the A League as well. So that's sort of a national sport. Yeah, it just depends where you are. I'm a rugby league fan. I'm a Knights fan, but I'm also like a Jets fan as well. Newcastle Jets, A-League. Yeah. So maybe I could come onto the podcast and have like a little A-League.
An A-League segment.
A-League part. Man. Just a special edition catch-up. all I have to say is like Sydney are winning by like 12, 14 points or something like that, and they're way ahead. And
that's my team. That's my A-League team is Sydney.
Sydney FC.
Because Alessandro Del Piero left from when the legend himself eventually left Juve. He went to Sydney FC. So that was crazy.
Yes.
I expected him to just retire, but he was too good to retire. It was.
And I'm sure they threw him a bit of money to come out to Australia, persuade him to come to Australia.
I'm sure they did.
Play soccer in the Australian summer.
Yeah, there you go. No, that's awesome. But yeah, so that footy and the toke part is obviously, again, don't worry, Craig is not illegally smoking. Actually, Lauren and I just started watching Breaking Bad because I don't think she's seen it all the way through. But
oh, really?
It's an awesome show. So I want to watch it with her. But it's just crazy. Like we're right at the beginning of the part where the family finds a joint, and just like the way that everyone acts with the one joint is just bonkers. Like to consider at least in comparison to Canada. Right, in China, it's like, cut your hand off. No, I'm just kidding. That's insane. No, it's you probably go to prison. I don't know. I never got caught. So, anyways, I don't know.
Doesn't sound too exciting.
And well, I know I've heard I've known people that have gone in them. You have to rotate 15 people to a little room or whatever.
Yeah, right.
There's only a couple beds. Awful, man. So don't do anything illegal in China.
So tell us a little bit about more about the Footy and Toke Show. When can they see it? When can they hear it? And what do you talk about?
So again, footy, football, toke, chronic. We basically introduce different strains of cannabis at the beginning of the show, whether it's the same or a different one or just whatever we're smoking for that particular show. And then
Are
we
you
get
getting
in.
royalties for that?
No, they're just strains. Like yeah, no, nothing like that. It's just the name of that particular strain. It's not necessarily affiliated with any sort of brand
What was the
or
last one?
anything like that.
Moby Dick or something?
Yeah, one of them was Moby Dick. One was called Zombie OG. That one was some pretty crazy stuff. My buddy Augie hooked that stuff up. Yeah. But no, it's good. It's honestly, man, it's just for fun. Like we're buddies, we hang out, we we like to smoke weed, we like to watch football, and we like to talk about it, you know. Actually, Augie said he had a dream. He texted me really early one morning, like before the market, and because we were both vendors at the same farmers market,
Hmm.
and and yeah, he's like, man, I had a dream that we started a podcast and talked about football, or he just had started a podcast, I think. And then when I saw him later that day, I was like, football, and then chronic, because we talk about football all day at the market. Like, well, not all day, in passing, you know, which tends to be often sometimes, you know. And then we enjoy talking about it, you know. So it just kind of happened, man. And honestly, it was around the same time that um, it was actually right after I was talking to you about your podcast and about, I remember that conversation about you. I'm like, just do it, man. What do you have to lose? And
Yeah.
then basically the next week, Augie was like, man, I had a dream. And I was like, whoa, like that's too crazy. It's like meant to be another, you know, another one. I don't know. It's just interesting how things kind of play out and work out. It's cool.
There's one thing that I noticed listening to it, and I like the fact that you're always sort of changing it and trying different things. I mean, the last one that I heard, that you had all the updates and the news, and you talked about all the news last time. The one before, you just went straight into your results. So I like that. I like that you're growing it. You're up for ideas and all that. But I also noticed that you guys are you can just, when you're listening to it, you just feel that you're super passionate about football. It just comes out. I just feel that. So
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
and
I'm glad, man. That's the whole point. We're just having fun. And if
yeah.
you're enjoying that, then that awesome. You know, like
Look,
that's awesome. Like I love
yeah,
that. Like it's meant for anybody who like, I don't know. I've had friends tell me like, "Hey man, like, you know, I'm listening now. I'm getting to like relearn the sport." You know, people who
yeah,
used to love it and they're not familiar with the newer players and all that. And it's always about growth, right? Like you said, it's the first episode we did a lot of like predictions. So it was a
yeah,
lot of upcoming fixtures, but we went in depth with more of the games.
yeah,
But the way that we changed the format, even to uh,
yes.
the second, do you ever remember Joe in China? He was from Beijing. He was that kind of tall, lanky Scottish guy.
No.
Oh man, that's too bad. He he listened to it and he sent me a recommendation, like a, sorry, not a recommendation, some feedback. Pardon me. And he just said, well, a couple things. He mentioned like the predictions and all that, but one thing he said is, he said, smoke more weed. And I was like, man, that's such good feedback. Wow, that's like primo, like A1, you know, like perfect. Yeah, let's do that. So we did on the second episode, and it actually improved the format because we were doing
Yeah.
we it's true, man. It's all true. It's it's just funny, man. And it worked out lovely. Like I enjoyed it more, I think, because there's more of the new stuff, especially with like what's happening in football right now as far as coronavirus taking over
Yes.
like a lot of the situations. Like so I support Juventus in the Italian Serie A,
Come
and
on.
yeah, man, Forza la Juve, and they played pretty much the biggest game of the season today. Juve won 2-0, so over Inter as well, which is
And
just
then And then, sorry, I actually just watched that before we started talking, and there was no one in the crowd. Well, not that I could see.
No spectators. And what's
That's what.
crazy from the episode that we released earlier that week on the Tuesday, because we release it every Tuesday,
Mhm.
we talked about how there was going to be a delay, so it was going to be postponed till mid-May.
Ah,
This was what this as of the recording on the Monday. I think it was the Monday we did this one, and the Tuesday rather. But anyways, they said no, it's postponed. We're going to do it in May because it's a huge game and there's a lot of fixtures and this and that. But then all of a sudden, I was checking updates again and got an update that it's going to be played this weekend with no spectators, which is
yeah.
really devastating for the game. It's really devastating because you lose the atmosphere.
Yes.
You know,
Oh,
you could hear. It was cool because you could hear the players yelling to each other.
it's a good
That was
thing.
cool. That was very cool to be able to hear how they interact with each other and to hear the managers yelling or the coaches yelling, right? Because it's
Mm.
the same game. It's just there's no fans screaming, but they all yell at each other. All the players talk to each other, right? So you
But
hear
that, but
like
that, but that's the thing. But like you were
but the
saying on the
sound.
last podcast, that the atmosphere of the crowd of having 40,000 people there or whatever, screaming for your team, it takes that a bit out of it, don't you think?
It's a huge advantage to play at home when
Mm.
your supporters are in the stadium as well.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't really have the same, effect. Yes, you're still playing at home, so you still have home advantage in that regard, but the whole point is to be able to like basically drill into the other team that they are going to lose. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yes.
That's the whole point of it, but we still came out with the 2-0 victory and I guess, I'm glad it was played now. It's over, man. Oh,
So what are
to
they
win
going to
too.
do? What are they going to do with that? Are they going to continue playing in empty seats arenas for the next couple of weeks, or have they
It's
made a
hard to say.
decision?
I guess so. Like there's still a lot of uncertainty, I guess, because it depends on I don't want to say, if I'd rather say, if it escalates, not rather how it escalates, but you know what I mean? It's hard to say. A
To
lot of games
predict.
are probably going to be postponed. You never know.
Mm.
Champions
Eh,
League is all over Europe, so and that's coming up again soon too. So
yeah.
yeah,
And all the revenue that they're losing for not having the fans, like how they're doing that,
oh man,
um
there's so
and,
much to it. Yeah,
and then going off the sport topic, the Olympics. I mean, in Tokyo, that's coming up
yeah,
in the next couple of months. What's going to happen there? Apparently, it's like the first time ever that an Olympic may be cancelled.
that's
So
yeah.
that's some crazy news. And I wanted to tell you, I told you before about listening to your podcast as well. You were
Yeah.
saying about that you were going to have that empty seat arena, talking to my dad about sport and just whatnot. And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, I heard that they're still going to play the Juventus game with no crowd. And I was like, oh, there you go, footy and take, come on.
Hey, right on. Yeah, that's awesome,
So
man. I
I'm
appreciate you
learning.
sharing
I'm
what you're
learning.
learning.
That's
No,
right.
that's
That's
cool,
right.
man. Yeah, I love it. And
And
yeah, I would love to have an A-League special. Maybe if oh man, could you imagine Newcastle Jets and have they won the title recently? Sorry, I'm not
uh,
very caught up on my A-League
well,
football.
well,
Sorry.
if you can remember, we sat down in a bar in Qingdao
Oh, I do
two
remember
years
that.
ago,
Yes,
and
I remember that at
what was
Bokies.
Bockies, yes, and we found it on the TV, and yeah, so they were in the grand final last 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, 3 years ago. So that we haven't gone too good this year. I haven't really kept up with it, but they haven't lost since I've been back in Australia. So that's kind of a good thing. So that's 4 games this month. So
Have you been
yeah,
to any of them live?
I will go. I will. I
Oh,
haven't been yet.
beautiful.
I will get to one of the games. And if you do a YouTube search, one of the goals that they
Mhm.
scored last week to win against Melbourne is one of the best goals that I've ever seen. He kicked it from like the maybe 30 meters out and just top right hand corner, bang.
Oof, belter.
So
Oh, I love
yeah,
it.
top of
Nice,
Stanley.
man.
So check that out. Go the Jets.
Nice, man. That's wicked. I love it. Yeah, if you go to a home match, you should take some videos
I
for
will.
Footy and Toke
I will.
representing Australia. It's
And
awesome.
yeah, we can organize a little A-League special.
That'd be
5
so
minutes.
cool, man. I'd love
I'll
that.
get on the beers instead of the the.
Hey,
So
there you go.
all right, mate. Like seriously, we could talk till the cows come home like forever and ever and ever. But let's sort of wrap this up. So what is like your future with the grooming and the podcast? What's in the future for Tony?
That's a great question, man.
Because
I'll
actually,
let.
I just had a psychic reading. My next podcast that'll come out in 2 days' time, I talked to a psychic from England, and he actually did a psychic reading about my future. So you'll
Wow,
have to tune in and listen to what he has to say. So, but yes, what is the future
interesting.
for Tony?
Well, I was gonna say I'll let future Tony tell you, but honestly, I'm taking it one day at a time. It's just about
Yes.
constant progression, and I'm just every day trying to improve on what I can, and just be in as much control of what I'm doing as I can as well, because no one else is, right? I guess, as far as the business goes, I'm just gonna keep putting my passion into it and, you know, working for it, really. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It doesn't really feel like work, I mean, there's a
Yes.
lot to it that is, and there's a lot of stuff that, I still need to incorporate, and, but it's all learning, man, everything from scratch. So it's awesome, man. It's a
Yeah.
awesome little project, and I'm very excited about it. And same with Footy and Toke Show, like that's really just for fun,
Yes.
like if like we'll see, there's no, right now the future for it is that we're gonna record Footy and Toke episode 004 uh
Come on.
tomorrow, and then yeah, release it on Tuesday. So, and as far as Victorian grooming, like I say, man, it's just all exciting. We're at a
Yeah.
market here in the city, and going to be doing some spring shows throughout the city. And I mean, it is fairly local right now, but you never know, man. I'm working towards it, and it's like a baby. It's like my baby. I don't know. It's hard to, it's all progress, man. It's all part
Yeah.
of it.
It's good. The unknown future. You got your business, you've got your podcast, Lauren, your family, close to your family.
I'm
Yeah,
just enjoying every day, man. Really,
that's right.
honestly, being
Yeah.
grateful for every single day, and the fact that I'm able to do this, even the fact that we're having this conversation
Yes.
is awesome, man. This was super fun. I hope to do it again very soon. You
Definitely.
know.
Come on. And we talked about it a long time ago. I don't know if you remember about it now, but Tell Craig Your Story podcast is sort of looking for some sponsors to be advertised on our podcast. Maybe Victoria Grooming could be one of the first. Maybe we could do a little bit of negotiation after.
Send your offer through to my people, and I'll have a
Oh,
glance
okay.
at it.
My people will talk to your people and they'll get back to me.
Yeah, basically we'll just Facebook Messenger each other. Is that what?
I think that's yeah.
I think so, yeah.
We'll start doing the bidding at some higher. All right, mate. And to finish off, can you tell us where can we find Footy and Toke and your grooming company?
So for Victorian Grooming, we are on Instagram at Victorian Grooming, and also on Facebook as well, Victorian Grooming. Those are the two main as far as Victorian Grooming goes. Also victoriangrooming.com. We're setting up, different shipping options right now. Have it set up for Canada. And then moving forward from there, we'll set up different places. And obviously there are special, potentially custom orders that can happen, which is very cool because I know you do shave, so
Yes, that's right.
send some stuff down to Australia, and
Come on.
and then for the Footy and Toke, at the Footy and Toke Show on Instagram. But if you and also Craig, it would be very cool if you got involved with this. Is for the Footy and Toke. So at the end of our podcast, we have our news sort of segments and transfers and all that kind of fun stuff, and then into predictions in the second half, and we really want to get sort of a community base around it. If people, not even people who smoke weed and watch football, if you enjoy football, or even if you enjoy the sport, or if you just want to laugh, well, like if you just want to listen to some two guys, chat shit about football and smoke some cannabis, then whatever. But no. I would love to see your predictions. Maybe the more you listen to the show, you'll learn more.
Sure.
Get more. Educated on the current game and throw some predictions down. So at Footy and Toke on Twitter is where we're gonna try and set up predictions, and it's all very new. It's even Victorian Grooming, like I say, 7-8 months now, and it's still so new, and it's just very exciting. So I really am taking it one day at a time, and and it's good. Just every day is a blessing, really. Man, we could talk, like you said, we could talk for hours.
That's right. I know for sure that some of our listeners are definitely hardcore football fans, so hopefully we can get some more listeners, and they can send their predictions through as well. All right, mate. Thanks very much for your time. I know you're a busy man. Talk to you very, very soon.
Sounds good, Craig. This was awesome. I can't wait to do it again, man.
All right. See you, Tony. Bye-bye.
See you, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.